Well, I'm going to start over. So this is Ryder, and I'm at my apiary here in Walnut Creek. And I'm going to start by doing hive inspections on Alice and Bella. And we're going to move on to Jasper and Carlisle and Esme. And Rosalie is an interesting situation right now because it's not a live hive, but it's being thoroughly inspected, but it might be just getting robbed out. And then we have the unnamed hive over here at the end, which was one of the last hives I introduced to the colony last year. So this should be an interesting set of hive inspections. We'll determine if we need to use Formic Pro on them. And I have Formic Pro ready to go. And I got my smoker ready. In fact, I've already given Alice, this is the third time I've puffed Alice. And I've got my gear on, and I've got my socks wrapped around the bottom of my pant legs because I don't have my full body suit here. It is up in Humboldt County. And let me go ahead and get my gloves on and put my hood on, and we'll start our inspection. Let's see, one more thing I need is my hive tool, and I believe that's on the patio table. Well, while I was concerned about the sun warming the camera up, I didn't think too much about the wind blowing the camera holder over. So I need a rock. Let's just walk around here. I know there's some rocks right back here. So the only hive I've inspected so far is Charlie. And Charlie is doing quite well. And I did treat Charlie with Formic Pro. So let's see. We'll set the camera back up here for Alice. And I'll do my best to show what's going on. I have my helping hands. I have my bee brush. I have my gloves. I have my smoker. The only thing I'm not seeing, oh, did I see it now? My hive tool. So let me get my hood on. Oh, by the way, the combination of stuff in the smoker is cotton fiber that has some wood chips in it. I'm using some egg crates, and I'm also using some wood chips from my friend Aaron. I also have a container to put excess wax in, and I have a container to put propolis in. So I only remove the propolis that's excess propolis that gives beekeepers grief. I'm not removing all the propolis. So I'll probably set these up on top of Jasper and open them up. And then I'll set the helping hands aside, remove the lid. So the telescoping lid is off, and I'm going to put some smoke in the top. And for those that are just watching for the first time and aren't familiar with beekeeping, the smoke fills multiple purposes. It calms the bees because they think there might be a fire. They go get a fill of honey. And just like us at Thanksgiving dinner, it calms us down when we have a full belly. So this, there we go. Come on, stand up a little bit better. There. Now it's in the sun, so I'm a little concerned about it overheating. If it does, we'll deal with that in a minute. So I'm actually going to just take the whole box off. I'm not going to take the inner lid off because I don't think they put too much honey in here. If they have, we'll find that out. And it's pretty light, so they haven't. So here's my queen excluder. On the top, that prevents the queen. Also prevents any drones from going up into the top boxes, so all they can do is store honey in the top boxes. There we go. That little cup holder works very well. So I'm going to go ahead and smoke this down and give these bees a minute to go down into the hive. And then I just leave the smoker sitting in front of the hive because it continues to kind of smoke it. So I'll take the queen excluder off, tap these bees down in, and I am going gloveless right now. If I find that the bees are being overly defensive, then I may put my gloves on. But otherwise, it doesn't look like there's a lot of activity in this top box. I'm going to look at a couple frames, see if I see brood on them. Now, 8-frame hives are really nice because there's a lot of room to work with. So even if propolis builds up. Okay, so right there you can see there's just a ton of nectar in the upper 2 corners. So it's a horseshoe shaped pattern and there's tons of nectar. It's not capped. In the middle there, I don't see any eggs laid, but on this side, I see a lot of capped brood, and you can see that horseshoe pattern exists on here as well. So this is a good sign. She's already laying eggs in this. And look how small these bees are. They're very small, in my humble opinion, less vulnerable to varroa mite. So I'm gonna go ahead and just set this frame back in where it was, and I'm gonna pop this whole box off, and I'm gonna go ahead and do an inspection of the main brood chamber, the deep brood chamber. So this is a medium, and I have converted almost all of my hives over to a single deep and a single medium for the brood chamber, and then after that I put the honey supers on above that. So this is everything the bees need right here to survive. However, they make more honey than they need, and that's what we are able to harvest. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this box, and we'll do a further inspection on that later. But for right now, look at this. So this is a bit of a mess. We have some burr comb on here that has mostly drone cells in it. And normally I would feed these to my chickens. And the reason I'm looking at this one right here is because if there was going to be varroa mite in this hive, it would be on this. Now this right here is a Formic Pro treatment patty that I put in here in October. And I never re-inspected this hive after October because there really isn't much need to when you know a hive is healthy. But again, look at the size of these bees. So most likely, this is foundationless frames in here. And that allows the bees to make the size comb that they want to. And these little bees are less vulnerable to varroa mite. So it's a beautiful thing as far as I'm concerned. Put the camera down because I need to smoke this hive to get these bees down and remove this burr comb. And I'm gonna put the burr comb in a container to recycle the wax. Normally, if there's brood in it, I would give the brood to my chickens, but because I'm in the process of moving to another county, I am no longer keeping chickens. I gave them away. So see how the smoke drives the bees down off of the area? So I'm less likely to injure one of them. And I started saying that there's multiple reasons. One is it masks the ability for them to sense an alarm signal. So whether you crush a bee or they feel defensive, they aren't sending out a signal, or at least it's not being picked up by the other bees. And therefore you don't end up having a whole bunch of angry bees chasing you around the apiary while you're working on it. Now they're already coming back to this, so I'm just trying to encourage these bees to not get crushed and not be a part of my cleanup. So they already came back to this. I'm gonna try to smoke them down one more time off of this chunk. I think that's the last chunk I need to clean off. So burr comb can attach one frame to another above and below, and that can be a hindrance to beekeepers, not to the bees, but to the beekeeper. So I'm just scraping off that extra burr comb. Now again, there's nice gaps on either side, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the first frame over to the corner slowly so I don't crush any bees, and then I'll pull out the second frame. And the reason why I generally pull out the second frame rather than the corner frame is you're less likely to break a frame or damage the corner of the box. So I'm going to go ahead and lift this frame out and we'll take a look at what's going on. And while I'm lifting this out, I'm also going to, wow, that's just gorgeous. I'm going to put my helping hands on, and this is what I'll hang the excess frames on. It's just a little rack. Now, this on the bottom is burr comb, but it serves as a ladder, so the bees can actually climb up when they come into the hive easily. And this is just coated with brood. So this queen is doing really well. I hate to do much more in this box because it's doing so well. So I'm going to end this inspection. I know there's a queen in here. I can see from everything that's in here, and I know it's a healthy colony with all these bees, and they're small bees. I just love what I'm seeing here. I am not going to treat this hive. I don't believe it's vulnerable to Varroa, so I'm not going to treat it. Remove my helping hands. I'm going to go ahead and put the medium brood chamber box back on. Now you can see that there's bees on more than 60% of this hive. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 frames in the 8th frame, all 8 frames. So it's 100% has bees on it. And that's definitely time to put another box on. Now this box only has 1, 2, 3, 4.5 frames. So this box really doesn't need another another box yet. But what I'm putting on is a honey super. So she's going to continue to develop her brood. I have no concerns about this hive swarming right now. They're doing a ton of collections. I'm simply going to put the queen excluder back on, and if they are making extra honey, they'll start doing it. So this hive's in really good shape. There's not much more to do on this. I don't need to see her to know that she's there. I can do my report on this hive, and I already feel a little weight in this. So they are already storing extra honey. Should I look for that? Let's look. Let's look and see how much extra honey they're already starting to store. Most likely it would be in the center frames. So I'll look there. Nope, doesn't look like they're storing any extra honey at all yet. This is just heavier than normal because it has a lot of drawn out comb on it. And these are actually returns from recycling or from processing honey earlier. So there's still a little bit of honey on these. And that's fine. That gives them extra stuff. So that's it for now on this hive. I've got 2 notches cut in the inner cover, and that allows bees to enter in and out the top as well as moisture to escape. So we got good airflow. I put those to the back side so that the air comes in from the front and goes out the back. We get rid of excess moisture. It also helps to cool the hive when it starts getting hotter. So Alice is in really good shape, and I'm done. And I'm very pleased to see that I have small bees in here. Now the telescoping lid, I want to put it all the way to the back. Now I know those vents are open. Let's move on to Alice. So, let's see if I can angle this camera up a little bit. Alice has a Chinese knockoff of the Flow Hive, and I'm quite certain nothing's going on in it. I just enjoy putting it on here. Kind of looks cute. For right now, I'm just going to move it. They've actually propolised it down a little bit, and it has some weight. So who knows? There might actually be some honey in there. And there's bees coming out the top of the inner cover. So let's do our smoke action. Gonna give a little smoke to Bella. And again, I'm seeing small bees in here, and I'm really pleased with that. I'm trying to convert over to the brood chambers being more and more foundationless so that they create small bees. The less treatments we have to do, the better. So I am seeing some ants on here, and that's because I haven't treated for ants yet this year. Let's start. This is the box I just put on, and wow. Wow. So I just put this box on a week and a half ago, and it's already propolis down, and it's got some weight to it. They're already storing excess honey. And let's look at this. Wow. So you can see there's some burr comb built up in there. And actually, I'm gonna try to get the camera into the shade to cool it down a little. Look how tiny those bees are. So those are significantly smaller than commercial bees from when you use a foundation frame. And if you allow them to make their own honeycomb, they will make it smaller and they will breed smaller bees. So I'm not even going to smoke this. I'm just going to go ahead and pop this queen excluder off of Bella. And then I'll just tap it a couple times to get the bees off of it. And then move that aside. And again, I'm probably going to go ahead and just drop this box. Let's try a new camera location. I'm going to put it on top of Jasper where I have my wax scrapings and my propolis scrapings. And this is the secondary brood chamber. It's a medium. And I only see bees on 3 of the frames. So it shouldn't be in a position of needing to swarm because they have plenty of space. So I'll start by loosening up the corner frame and bringing it over, and then I'll pop the second frame out. A lot of times I pull this box off first and inspect it later, but this time I'm going to do this box first. And what do we got here? So they're collecting honey. They're drawing out comb and collecting honey, collecting nectar to make into honey. And let's grab the helping hands. So I'm just going to set that aside. There's no brood that I'm worried about the wind cooling off. The next frame is completely blank on this side. And I got some cross comb. So a cross comb is when 2 frames are connected to each other. And you can see it's crossed. It's going the opposite direction. And they've started to develop a cross comb here as well. So I'm going to knock these bees off. And when I do that, I generally hit my own hand rather than the frame. And I'm going to scrape off all this cross comb. So I'm going to scrape all this off and put it in the container for wax. Because it doesn't harm the colony, but it makes the beekeeper's job more difficult. So yeah, I'm just going to scrape all this wax off. Now these are foundations, so maybe I should switch over in this hive to foundationless. And I can do that as simply as popping this frame out. But for now, I'm going to just go ahead and put the frame back in. There's not a lot of propolis buildup on it. I'm just going to clean off the excess wax and we'll move on to the next frame. So the next frame has cross comb on one side, not the other. Look at all those gorgeous little tiny bees. And they're collecting nectar. But I'm going to go ahead and knock them down because I want to get rid of this cross comb and I don't want to hurt anybody. So again, hit my own hand. And now I can easily scrape away this cross comb without harming any bees. This is excess propolis buildup between the frames, and because this is a 10 frame hive, I want to limit that. So I'm actually going to go ahead and just set this down right here. Grab my propolis container. Now I'm not scraping off all the propolis, just the propolis between the frames. And that's so that I have room to move around in the hive. When it gets so packed full of propolis on the edges of the frames, then it makes it very tight, very sticky, hard to move. So let's go back and look at that last frame, see if there's any excess propolis on it. There's a little bit, not excess, but a little bit. And I'll show you what I want to do at the end of inspecting this box to prevent that from happening. It's always going to happen a little bit, but we can limit it by tightening up the frames at the end of our inspection. So let's go back to the first frame. And the reason I didn't pull this out earlier was I don't want to break the frame or harm it if it's sticky. So this is fully drawn out. And it looks like they're making the cells smaller. So I'm just going to leave these in here. I will clean off the excess propolis. It's not a lot. Small buildup of propolis on the sides of these. And if I just take these few seconds to do it each time, it makes it much more manageable every time I come into the hive. Okay, so we're gonna leave that. You know, I'm gonna go ahead and drop that one out. That gives me more room to work in here. Scrape off the excess wax and move on to the next frame. All right, on this frame, that's a ton of brood, and that's a ton of what we call white honeycomb. So this is freshly made honeycomb. They've made this year. So since January of this year, they've made that honeycomb. I see wet larvae in this area right here, and I see capped larvae over here. If I looked harder, I'd probably see eggs. And again, look at that. Just beautiful. Those are all new bees that are being created. So I'm going to take this and just put one corner down and scrape off that excess propolis. And it's a nice warm day, so the propolis just sticks to the scraper. It doesn't chip off and fly away. Oh, look what happens sometimes. So this is a chunk of the next door frame, so the propolis has literally glued them together. It would be nice to have a videographer, but look at that. That's a piece of the other frame. And then I'm gonna go ahead and scrape off this propolis. And I'll put this frame back in. It's a nice warm day, so I'm not worried about harming these eggs. And yeah, so I see wet larvae, I see capped brood, and although I don't have my readers on, I'm guessing there's plenty of eggs on this frame too. So I'm just gonna put that back in. Let's see, where did that piece of wood break off? It broke off from over here, so I have this aligned properly. Generally, I want to try to put everything back the way it came out, but I make changes every now and then depending on situations. All right, so this one is a little bit stuck to the box below. So there's some excess honeycomb there, called it burr comb. There's so many capped brood in this hive. I'm not seeing any signs of queen cells yet though. So I'm gonna do the same thing I did with the last one. I'm just gonna gently scrape off the excess propolis. And I'm also gonna clear off the excess comb on the bottom. Now right there, I just dropped a piece of the propolis into the box. The bees will pick that up and reuse it. I've seen them do it. I've seen them carry propolis in their pollen baskets just like they would pollen. So let me get the propolis from the other side. Hardly any on this one. Hardly any. I'm just going to leave that. I do want to get this little bit of extra burr comb off the bottom because they're starting to connect to the cells below, and I don't want that. That again is a beekeeper issue. It doesn't harm the hive to have it all connected, because in nature they would have it all connected. But in order to do inspections and do honey harvesting, it's a lot easier if they're not connected. Now this is where we would see queen cells, if there were any, on the bottom of the frame if they were getting ready to swarm. So that's it for this frame. Put it back in. Look at all that beautiful brood. Thousands of bees, thousands of eggs laid every day, which means thousands of bees are dying 40 days from now. All right, so this is the last of those 4 frames that had a lot of bees on them. So this will probably be the last frame I inspect in this upper box. And again, just absolutely coated with brood on this one. I have not spotted the queen, so she's probably in the bottom box. And I'm just going to go ahead and gently remove the propolis from in between the frames so it's easier to manage next time. And I apologize to those people that are annoyed by me repeating myself, but that's something an educator does. And I try to be both educational and entertaining. So the entertainment factor starts when I get stung and I say, God damn it. And for those that don't like profanity, you should probably choose somebody else to watch. Because I don't think profanity is a horrible way to express yourself. Okay, so we'll put that back in there. So we got 3.5 frames with brood on them, and we're going to put those right back in the center. The next frame is probably partially developed. but I don't think it goes beyond, yeah, see, they're just drawing out comb in this one right now. So there's nothing really to do here other than scrape the excess propolis off, giving myself more room to work in the hive. Let's stick them. We don't need a Charles Wooden out here. Or who was the other one with the Raiders that used way too much stickum? It was Kenny that started it, but I think it was Charles Wooden or his brother that really overdid it and got stickum banned. When the football hit him in the shoulder and it stuck with no hands on it, that was time for that to stop, I guess. So I'm just removing a little bit of propolis here. Some of it fell back in the hive, no big deal. I'm only harvesting a little bit of this to make tincture. So the last frame is fine. It's got some propolis on it, but I'm gonna go ahead and scrape that right down into the hive and leave it there. So it's about 1/8 of an inch off the wall. There's a little bit of burr comb on the side, so I'm scraping that off. There we go. So I'm going to put this all back together right the way it was. So I'm sliding all these frames over at the same time. See how I can move 5 frames at once? That's because I removed the excess propolis. And then we're going to go ahead and pop these frames back in. And after I put this last frame back in, I'm going to center all these frames. So there's a 1/4 inch gap on both sides. And I'm tightening them up so those gaps in between don't get filled with propolis. Now I have a 1/4 inch on each side, so when I come into this hive, I can simply move the end frames and start working on it. I'm going to take the helping hands off, and I'm going to go ahead and remove this box. Now we did not see the queen in here, so we can assume the queen's in the bottom box. So far, I'm not seeing any signs of distress in this colony at all. In fact, I'm just seeing wonderful things everywhere here. All right, so once again, we're seeing the Formic Pro Patty that was left behind from last October. So this is a varroa mite treatment, and the bees have even been trying to remove it themselves. It's totally inert at this point in time, and Formic Pro is a pad that slow releases over a week formic acid, and formic acid is something that's already found naturally in honey in beehives. So while it is a treatment, it is one of the least invasive treatments there is. So I've got some drone brood here and some excess wax here. I'll remove the wax that I can without dealing with the bees yet, but I'm going to go ahead and smoke this down because they're already paying attention to their fallen brothers. And yes, a few of the drones will die in the process of a hive inspection. A few bees will die. You know, our goal is to reduce that as much as possible, to cause as little stress to the hive as possible. Well, I apologize that my funky little camera holder is not here. All right, I'm going to put my helping hands on here, and I'm going to grab the smoker, which really should have been sitting down below the front entrance this whole time. But I'm going to smoke these bees off of this burr comb that has the drones in it, and then I'm going to set the hive or the smoker down below. I'm just going to scrape this off. And like I said, normally I would feed this to the chickens. No chickens on the property right now, unless my neighbor wants them for his chickens. And chickens absolutely love it. Very nutritious stuff for them. So I got an 1/8 of an inch gap. I'm gonna go ahead and slide this frame over, and I'll see if I can slide the other frames the other way, and I did. So this frame's probably gonna come out a little sticky, but that's okay. Get this first frame out, and it's the second frame in again. Let's see what we got. So we've got nothing on one side, drawn out comb on the other side, and there's a succession queen cup. So it's not on the bottom, it's right here. It's on the side. So that means they're thinking about replacing their queen. And there's a small little batch of brood here. And if you look, there's just rainbow pollen, nectar all throughout here. This is a beautiful frame. I am going to leave the succession cup there. If they want to succeed their queen, I'm going to let them do it. She may be a couple years old. They may feel it's time that they replace their queen. And if that's where it's located, I'm going to do it. If it's on the bottom of the frame, I'm not. Okay, so this is a foundationless frame, which is one of the reasons why we're seeing all these smaller bees. So we've got some honey in the middle here and a lot of smaller cells, smaller than the commercial foundation frames. And I'm just going to go ahead and set that aside. There's no brood on that. There was limited brood on the other. I'm not harming anybody. I see a little bit of built up propolis here and here, and I'll remove that. And then there's some excess wax on the wall, and I'll remove that. Okay, so now I've made a space for 2 frames. So by having these on this extra set of hands, as I call it, this holder, it gives me the room in the hive to just work with. And one thing I'm seeing right now that I'm not going to show you is that the bottom of this hive is very dirty, but it has a tray that I can pull out. There you go. So this is not bad. What we're seeing is a lot of beeswax, and this is when they uncap honey to eat it. So this is all winter long. Now another thing I can do is look at this in the sun, and if I see any shiny dark brown or black objects, those are varroa mites. And I'm not seeing any. Okay, I do see some. I see 1 and 2. I may treat this hive just because I see that. So if I see 2, there's well over 100 in this hive. So I'm only seeing 2 there. That's it. I only see 2 varroa mites. And because it's such a limited number, I'm going to go ahead and dump this into my compost pile that's right behind me. So the wax that I'm putting in here and the bee parts and the little bit of mold that's in here, none of that is going to be harmful to my my compost pile. So there, it's cleaned off. And I'll slide it right back in. And then next time I go to inspect, I can take a look at that and determine what's going on with this hive. And it looks beautifully clean from up above now. All right, so let's finish loosening up this next frame and take a look at it. All right, so I see plenty of brood. I see a couple of drone cells. An interesting pattern. There is some nectar being stored in the upper corners like a horseshoe pattern. I see a bee right there with pollen, a ton of pollen on her. I don't see a queen. So I'm just going to go ahead and set that down, same orientation, slide it over to the edge, clean off the excess wax, and move to the next frame. I did not check for propolis. There's a little buildup on this one, not a lot. So I'll just scrape that little bit off, give myself some more room to work with. So many things to think about and look at in a hive. So that's one of the reasons why I'm presenting these videos. I like to stream live on Twitch. Ow, I just got stung. There it is. So I actually crushed a bee. I flicked it out. Good to go. So I squeezed her. She didn't sting me. I squeezed her. All right, so plenty of good brood. And look at the bottom there. They're even making regular brood on the bottom. And I'm going to leave that there because that's like a ladder for them to get up into the colony. So there you can see that's burr comb on the bottom, but it works as a ladder. I'm not going to scrape it off. I am, however, going to set a corner down and scrape off the excess propolis. Now, if I was wearing gloves right now, I would not have gotten stung. However, that wouldn't have been as entertaining as when I said, God damn it. Oh, I dropped the propolis inside there. Should I go get it? No. All right, let's put this one back in. And we'll slide it over and tighten it up right away. Okay, so I should go put some ammonia or vinegar on that, and that will balance out the pH, and the stinging that's going on in my finger would go away. However, I'm going to finish this hive inspection and take a break and do that. Yeah, you can even see it's turning red and swelling up. Not a serious situation to worry about, but just bringing it to your attention. All right, plenty of brood, lots of nurse bees working, both sides. They're even laying regular bees in the bottom there. These are foundations, but they are making smaller bees. I'm impressed with that. Maybe they got the memo that if they make smaller bees, they're less vulnerable to varroa. So whether you go foundationless or not, the bees are probably smarter than us anyways when it comes to their own health and care. All right. Yeah, this has a lot of propolis on it, so for the next time I need to inspect, it will be easier if it's not so stuck together. And the temperature, I got to tell you right now, is absolutely perfect. It's warm enough that I'm not going to harm any eggs or brood by opening the box up, and yet it's not so hot that I'm dripping sweat on my face. All right, next frame over. This one feels a little lighter, and it's because they're building cross comb. So there's no comb on this side, but on this side, you can see there's some funky comb going on. And there's no, I don't know if I'm seeing wet larvae. I am. I'm seeing a little wet larva, but I'm going to sacrifice that because I want to get this out of here. I also see 2 succession cups being built. There's one right there. There's another one right there. So again, I'm going to do that trick of hitting my own hand, and I'm going to knock all these bees off, and I'm going to fix this frame because I don't like it. Do they like it? I guess they do, because they're building it that way. Apparently the architectures have some other kind of design in mind. This side's fine, so I'm just going to hit it one more time, get the rest of those bees off, and I'm going to scrape off all of this cross comb. And I'm going to scrape out those queen cells, or queen cups, I should say. Not queen cells until there's a queen in them being fed royal jelly. But yeah, they're building this comb off of the frame. For whatever reason they chose to do it, I don't know. And I think I only lost maybe 2 bees in that whole thing. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this right back in there. Oh, let's clean off the propolis. See, so this is excess propolis built up in between frames. Just scrape it off, and we can make a tincture out of that with pure grain alcohol. And that tincture is fantastic for all kinds of things, from eczema to poison oak to digestive issues. If you Google uses of propolis tincture, you will be astounded by how many things it benefits. And it's basically just sap from trees. But it has antiseptic values to it, as well as antibacterial and antifungal. So just great stuff, propolis is, and thank you, bees, for making that for us. It seals up their hives. See, I'm not trying not to pinch the bee again. Okay, so this frame doesn't have anything going on it. So I'm just going to pop that back in here. So this hive is doing fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and end my inspection. I haven't run into the queen, and I'm going to slowly push all these frames back together where they were. I'll move this one over by itself, and then I'm going to try to move 4 or 5 frames at once. Looks like 4. I'm going to move 4 frames at once, and look at that. Cleaning up the excess propolis allows me to do that. And then I'm just going to pop these 2 frames right back in where they were. And again, make sure there's a 1/4 inch on this side. Make sure there's a 1/4 inch on that side, so I can come in either side on my next hive inspection and have some room to work. So take off my helping hands. Put my medium brood chamber back on top. And to be honest with you, this box does not need a honey super on it yet. There's just not enough activity. However, since I live so far away and I play everything by ear, I literally come and go as life allows me to. So I'm trying to get all these bees off of here. I'm going to scrape off this excess wax, especially since it's warm. It should come off nicely. Let me turn the camera over here, see if I can prop it up a little. That might get it. So I'm just scraping off this excess wax so that the bees can travel up and down between the two boxes unencumbered. And the whole purpose of this metal rack is that the gaps are too small for a queen to travel through. So she will not come up in the top and start laying any, oh, that little bee got trapped. I let her go. There won't be any larvae up here. There'll be no brood, no larvae, no eggs up here. And so all they can do up here is store pollen and honey, and generally it's just honey. They keep the pollen closer to their own sources. How lucky is that? That when that propolis container fell over, it got caught. So part of me just wants to replace this. There's so much wax in there, and I do have other queen excluders. I'm not going to. I've scraped off most of it. All right. So, not going to treat this hive. Don't feel the need to. And I'm going to go ahead and put the honey super back on, which already has some weight. So they may already be producing honey and putting it up here. So there we go. And we're done. I'm not going to put a regular telescoping lid on it. I already have this. I am going to leave this on it, and I'm going to put the flow hive on top. And the flow hive actually has some weight to it, so there may be some collecting going on here. It would be in the center, so I'd have to really look hard to see. There are bees in here, so it's a possibility that they're actually starting to use this. I'm just going to leave it on here for now, and let them smell it up, and hopefully within a year or two they'll be using this, and I'll actually be able to use it as a flow hive. So this is a little bit of an unusual setup. I have multiple openings at the top that the bees can go in and out of. 3 openings here at the top the bees can go in and out of, and then a large opening in the front that the bees can go in and out of. If this becomes a robbing situation, I would just fill this up, and I could remove this completely so that the openings in the back that are normally for moisture ventilation would be gone. So Bella's in good shape. Both Bella and Alice are in good shape. I want to go put some vinegar on my sting, and I'm going to take a short break to hydrate. But that's 2 hives down already, and what do we got? Less than 45 minutes. We did 2 hives. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 more hives. So it's possible in an hour and a half I could finish this whole thing. That's it for now. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you found it educational. Hope the bee sting was entertaining enough for some of you to enjoy. That's it for now. From Bella and Alice at the Ryder AOE Apiary in Walnut Creek, California. Ryder out.